Hello and welcome to the Ruslan Belov channel. So what's going on between Israel and Iran? Actually, it's no longer just between Israel and Iran, it's now between the US and Iran. Trump has issued an ultimatum giving Iran 24 hours to surrender. He demands that Iran abandon its nuclear program, and not just the nuclear program anymore, but also the ballistic missile development program. In short, he's demanding full and unconditional capitulation. Meanwhile, on China's side, 3 cargo planes have already landed in Iran. They're delivering something interesting. Personally, I don't believe Iran will agree to such a humiliating surrender. What do you think? And how do you feel about this? Now let's continue analyzing the situation on the front line. Let's turn to the map. So friends, if yesterday's 24-hour period, which we covered in our last report, was relatively slow in terms of advances, we captured just 5 square kilometers. Then the last 24 hours were more than 3 times better. In one day, Russian forces took control of 16.5 square kilometers. While still slightly below the average daily pace of May, it's not by much, and these are good numbers regardless. Let's start once again with the Siversk direction. It has been very encouraging in recent days. This is the 4th day in a row of consistent advances. In fact, 4 days ago, Russian troops took control of Hryhorivka. The day before yesterday, they reached the outskirts of Serebryanka, which we discussed in yesterday's update, and now, without pausing, they've pushed even further. What's especially important is that in a single strike, the Ukrainian armed forces were driven out of a key elevation on the eastern entrance to Serebryanka. Let me describe the terrain to make it clearer. Just 24 hours ago, our troops were positioned right here, on the approaches to the elevation that separated our lines from Serebryanka. Now they've taken not only the hill before the village entrance, but also a key height to the northeast, right before the Siversky-Donetsk-Donbass Canal. Securing this high ground is exactly what allowed them to enter the village, not just hold the outskirts, but actually advance a full kilometer into the residential area, reaching as far as one of the main streets, Vishnevaya Street. About 10 or more Ukrainian soldiers were killed here. They simply didn't expect such a rapid breakthrough from our side. As a result, they were caught off guard and turned into body bags. Yet again, Russia will be sending them back to Ukraine in trucks. A video showing a large number of dead has surfaced online, but I won't be showing it here. The progress in this area is obvious. Just 4 days ago, the Russian army was still on the eastern outskirts of Hryhorivka. Now they're in the center of Serebryanka. But even though we now control the high ground, the battle for the village is far from over. Take a look. To the west and southwest, there are still more elevations, and Ukrainian forces are holding those positions. So, a lot of work remains. To fully take Serebryanka, we must not only control the village itself, its buildings and streets, but also all the surrounding heights. Nevertheless, the fact that our forces are finally advancing here, and at a pace we haven't seen since spring 2022, is impressive. And I'm more than convinced this is also thanks to the recent command change. As of now, having reached Vishnevaya Street, only 5 kilometers remain to the north towards Siversk. If the entire village falls under control, that distance shrinks to 3.5 kilometers. We are closely monitoring this direction. It's also essential to begin clearing the entire area between Hryhorivka and Verkhnyokamyanske. This is a very complex terrain. Hills, ridges, elevations, lowlands. It's a challenging zone, but unless it's cleared, our positions in Hryhorivka and Serebryanka won't be solid. At any moment, Ukrainian forces could launch a counterattack from those heights. So it must be cleared, no question. Let's move on. We've also recorded gains on the Costantinovka section of the front. Every day, we inch closer to the city. Over the past 24 hours, our troops managed to finish clearing Mala Delavka. Just to clarify, there's a settlement called Delavka. It's a bit further north and not yet fully under our control. Then there's Delavka Station and a small village of the same name nearby. That's the one we finished clearing, and from there we pushed forward along the railway tracks toward Oleksandr Shultain. The advance covered nearly 2.5 kilometers. From our current positions, Oleksandr Shultain is less than 4 kilometers away. As for Costantinovka, you can follow the railway line straight to the city. At the moment, we're still 9 kilometers from Costantinovka. In the short term, that is, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're not yet talking about entering the city itself. First, the front line needs to be straightened and all the resulting pockets cleared. That's the top priority. But the fact that the front is steadily advancing toward Costantinovka and that a battle for the city is inevitable, it's already determined. That's a fact. As for the salient between Toretsk and Mirnohrad, there's silence for now, no news. Fierce fighting continues in 2 villages that are not just settlements, but part of a dense Ukrainian defensive node. I'm referring to Yablonivka and Oleksandr Kalinove. And by the way, for those closely following developments around Costantinovka, the actual start of battles for the city can only be expected when the salient is neutralized along this line, when Yablonivka and Oleksandr Kalinove are taken, when Klebanbek and the reservoir are captured, and when the front is straightened along the Nelipivka-Dilavka axis. Only then can we expect real progress. But it looks like that won't happen before September. Just a month ago, it seemed possible by mid-July. Despite daily gains and consistent movement, the progress is incredibly hard-won. And yes, the pace has noticeably slowed. But here comes some good news from the eastern flank of Mirnohrad. Our forces managed to advance more than 2 kilometers across a fairly wide section of the front. Over 6 kilometers in total. With this progress, we've reached the eastern outskirts of Shevchenko 1. There were earlier reports that the village was already under our control, but so far, since that information appeared, there has been no objective confirmation. So we treat this kind of information with caution. If only everything everywhere were confirmed like that, the whole picture would be very different. As for the immediate goals in this area, the objective is to capture Shevchenko 1, then Koptyevo, and push forward to Novotoretsk. That would allow us to cut off logistics routes to Novoekonomicon from the north. Whether that will succeed or not remains to be seen. But for now, the guys are doing quite well here. There was also a small advance in the Pokrovsk direction. We slightly improved our positions near Novosergivka, advancing 300 meters northward along the road out of the village. All in all, over the past 24 hours, 16.5 square kilometers came under our control. With the current pace, we're on track to capture around 480 to 500 square kilometers in June. However, the front is dynamic. It's entirely possible that at some point Ukrainian defenses could collapse, just like they recently did in the south of Donetsk region. And in that case, the numbers could look even better. Russian armed forces continue breaking through in Yunikivka toward the center of the village and are also taking control of the western portion of a supply road coming from Yablonivka. In the Sadkai area, Ukrainian troops are being pushed out of forested zones that remain under their control for now. The situation is complicated by the large number of fortified shelters. In the Alexandria area, Russian forces are attempting a breakthrough. So far, they've reached the outskirts and cleared out the forest zone. In the Novopavlivka direction, within the area of the Vostok Group, Russian forces are rapidly clearing the territory between Komar and the southern bank of the Vovcha River. On the northern bank, there are intense battles for Novukrainka. Heavy fighting is also ongoing west of Volnypol in the Shevchenko area. Russian forces have recaptured a major Ukrainian strongpoint. There is progress west of Fedorivka and Vesele as well. Now, a few words about politics. According to Yuri Podolyaka, the Russian aerospace forces have unprecedentedly neutralized a large storage facility near Kiev in terms of both power and efficiency. Judging by reports from the Ukrainian General Staff, the strike was one of the most powerful in their history. The last comparable one was just a few days ago. In other words, Russia is ramping up its air offensive. This is an undeniable fact. At the same time, I want to draw attention to the sharply reduced percentage of Ukrainian air defense interceptions of drones and missiles. According to an observer, today Kyiv managed to shoot down only slightly more than half of our UAVs. This is the worst performance in the entire observation period. I believe this result is largely due to the sheer number and tight localization of the strikes. Mobile air defense teams simply can't keep up with drones in such quantities. The neutralized air defense positions around Kyiv, the factories, and what appears to be the largest ammo depot, that's a result that will soon have a noticeable effect on the front line. There were also strikes on Sumy, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, and Zaporizhia regions. Hits were confirmed with Kinjal and Iskander missiles, Kh-101 cruise missiles, and numerous Shahed drones. Iran-Israel confrontation. Trump declared, "I have no desire to negotiate with Iran. I expect nothing less than its total capitulation. If they want to talk, they know how to reach me. They should have accepted the deal that was on the table. It would have saved many lives," wrote the US president. Judging by the current dynamics, the next step may be direct US involvement, either via air power or through its own cyber warfare platforms, such as the NSA and Cyber Command, to bring the entire campaign to a logical conclusion. Military intervention. Trump's strategy for Iran is clear. He wants to bring Iran under control through Israel, just like he wants to take control over all its oil and gas. That would give him enormous leverage and massive resources in the region. According to the Telegram channel Legitimy, oil prices are rising due to the war and might even spike to $100 to $150, depending on how long the conflict lasts, etc. But if Israel and the US succeed in defeating Iran, Trump could easily crash the prices to pressure Russia, if he wants, or raise them again to pressure the EU. That's why Iran is in no hurry to play all its trump cards, if it has any. And that's also why Israel is trying to suppress all Iranian air defenses and aviation. Without that, it will be hard to bring America into the game. Israel and the US intend to install the family of the former Shah, who are fully controlled by Israel and would become a manageable regime. Everyone is now watching to see if Washington will enter the game this week, as the Americans are still calculating the risks they might face later. Is this whole venture worth the risk? We'll see. Meanwhile, we continue to closely monitor the situation around Iran because it affects us too. What can I say? The world is becoming even more dangerous and even more interesting. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe, stay informed, and see you in the next update.